Okay, so Tracy, we'll just get started and then people join along the way. That's great. Um, Hi, everyone. It's great to see you all this afternoon. Thanks for joining the Work-Based Learning Breakout session. My name is Alicia Angus. I'm with Social Impact Partners, supporting the Work-Based Learning Group. I have my partner in crime, Jen. Jen, you want to say a quick hi? Tracy, I don't know if people are seeing us or not, but
I didn't see
We can
Jan.
yeah.
see.
Okay, yeah.
Okay. We have another Social Impact Partners staff member here who's supporting this committee as well. And I also see at least one of our committee members, Kathy. So feel free to chime in at any point. I'm just going to spend a minute talking. I'll share one slide. We really want to hear from you. So I'm going to see if I can share a screen. Okay, so Miguel talked a little bit about work-based learning and how we're talking about it in our commission. We're really talking about it as a continuum of learning, starting from career experiences, career awareness and exploration through more sustained real-world engagement. Our work group is specifically focused on the experiences delivered by employers. We're still doing our landscape analysis, but we're anticipating our work will focus on a couple of things. Building a more extensive, inclusive work-based learning plan that focuses on the employer engagement activities. Things like career awareness and exploration. This would include career fairs, workplace tours, guest speaking, job shadowing, and then the career development activities would include things like internships, co-ops, and apprenticeships. We're planning to develop a strategy for a more coordinated employer engagement, employer toolkits, building a case, and return on investment model for work-based learning. We know there will be data, policy, and funding issues, which we'll explore throughout our work. So that's kind of a very high level scope of our work, but we really want to get into a discussion with you guys. One of the things we're finding as we're doing a landscape analysis is there's not a lot of data around work-based learning collected at a state level. So we'd really love to hear more from you about what work-based learning exists today and how does that compare to like best practices you've seen elsewhere, or what are the best practices you've seen here in Connecticut. So I'm going to open it up. I'm going to take down this slide and feel free to just chime in, raise your hand, however we can get your input. And we're going to be taking some notes.
I can break some silence.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Sean. That would be great.
Was
Chris, I
someone
think,
able
has
to?
his hand up.
Oh, sorry. If someone had their hand up, we'll follow the education rules.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. So my name is Chris Mulhall. I do workforce development for all the community health centers or federally qualified health centers in the state. Um, and I've been to a few conferences. And I just want to share an anecdote that I thought was a really good model. There's a community health center in Northeast Washington State. You know, they're an area that's highly rural. 5% of people um pursue post-secondary education. And in like 2017 or 18, they were basically bankrupt and they said, well, we're doubling down on workforce anyway. And they've, um, by having a very systematic and integrated approach, they've done work-based learning, developed career pathways, and significantly improved their financial position because of that. And so I just want to share that it's possible. And what I've seen in people that do it well, it's because every piece is connected. It's not just an HR function or just a department leader function. It is a core strategy where the C-suite talks about it every day.
Chris, hi, this is Jen. I work with Alicia. Could you just tell us again the name of that program? I didn't catch it.
Yeah, so the organization, it's in Washington State. It's called NEW Health, and that's Northeast Washington Health. And they have developed what they call New Health University, which is basically for training and educating a lot of their support staff that would not require formal degrees, but still needs a lot of education.
Perfect. Thank you very much. I see some other hands up, and I don't know what the order was, but hopefully we'll have a chance for everyone to speak. So David, I see your hand up. Oh, it's two Davids. David D and David Ferreira, you're next. You're on deck for the follow.
Hi, everyone. Wanted to comment that Alicia's absolutely right. There isn't a great repository of statewide data on work-based learning experiences. My name is Dave Dogus. I'm the state director for the Connecticut Public Vocational Rehabilitation Program, Bureau of Rehab Services, and we do a lot of work-based learning for students with disabilities. It's one of our pre-employment transition services. See a lot of great benefits with it. We help support hundreds of kids each year, students with getting work-based learning experiences, and it's very beneficial to them as they go on to the next leg of really the workforce system. So we've been working to build a continuum of services and a continuum of supports and coordination with education, while we're working with the kids while they're students, as well as within the workforce system around disconnected youth. We have partnerships, with the workforce boards and with community rehabilitation providers, all doing this work of developing employer relationships and setting up opportunities for students. The more we can centralize that functioning, the more we can try to reach employers in a centralized and standardized way together in partnership. That will eliminate the redundancy they see in crossing and tripping over one another, and hopefully create access to everything that we're all doing collectively. So that would be the in my opinion, a really great goal to see as part of this plan. It's cross-system coordination, leveraging the Connecticut workforce system as it exists today with the core partners, all in communication, trying to work together, which we're already trying to do through shared grants and such. Build off of things like that exist and coordinate at the systems level.
Thanks, David. I don't mean to put you on the spot, but working in a space, do you see an organization that is well placed to play that sort of role of creating that front door maybe for employers?
Well, it's the workforce system itself could be something that you feed into. So, I think with some of the things that we're actually building, that's the right place to build from. It's an existing federally supported infrastructure that has multiple partners and people working together to, towards that goal, whether they have a disability or they're just a youth who needs help. Programs like ours are there to provide the supports for those with disabilities and to help in the planning and access, which helps everybody through principles of universal design. So, leveraging that, but coordination through the help with State Department of Education to be able to reach schools, to really work at the front end of the continuum that we work, trying to reach down to begin to promote self-advocacy and things for students, making decisions about their future, seeing a future through, the workforce system and the opportunities that are going to exist, in their labor market. So building those conversations, supporting schools and having the curriculum or the, really materials to help support families and students at that point, channeling them into work-based learning experiences and preparatory things to enable them to access the workforce system.
Wonderful.
Thanks, David. I see we have a few other hands up, and we also have a comment in the chat that we'd love to hear from employers, if there are any employers in this group. So I would encourage any employers here to raise their hand as well and tell us about your experience with work-based learning. But I think Sean and then Jim both had their hands raised.
Sorry, and David Ferrero was on deck. So we'll go to
Oh,
David
okay.
and then
Sorry
Sean,
about
then
that.
Jim. Sorry,
Yep,
we're tag teaming here. Right, David F.
No problem. Yeah, we're great. So I'm Dave Ferrero, I'm the provost of Charter Oak State College. One thing, just as we take a look at this ecosystem, I want to put a little bit of stats in here as well. We talk a lot about the middle school to high school and work-based learning there. I want to remind folks in the state of Connecticut and nationally, over the majority of people in post-secondary education are over the age of 25. If we do not have work-based and project-based learning for our working professionals, we have a half complete workforce plan. So what we found actually that's really successful is a lot of work-based learning and project-based learning over in their current employment place that actually is a level up. We do a lot of employment-based practicums over at Charter Oak. So I think how can we scale that and bring that up, and also, as I said, put that over into our repository. And I said, and also project-based learning and things that could be done in a virtual environment with companies, 20-hour, 30-hour projects. 67% of people in the state of Connecticut live paycheck to paycheck. They cannot take 15 weeks off of their job to come to an internship. So let's think about those ways. I'll give an example over in Virginia. There's actually a great new initiative just started in Virginia. It's called AI for VA. It's actually a partnership between Ripen, Grow with Google, Charlotte's Regional Chamber of Commerce, and the University of Virginia, where they actually have basically they do some self-paced learning the students, and then they actually do over a period of a period of time, a 100-hour project, but that's based not over on a traditional semester format. That is based over 6 months or a year with a small business needing assistance with this implementation plan. And that's how they engage the small businesses, which don't really participate in traditional internship processes. So that's an example, but I would encourage the group, if we are only talking about the middle school to high school population, we have a half complete. Not to say we shouldn't, that's definitely important. But let's also take a look at the majority of people that take post-secondary education.
Thanks, David. I just want to assure you we are focused on post-secondary as well in the commission work and in our committee work. So, but we'd love to talk to you more about these things.
Thank you. Sean McEwen, former manufacturing and engineering high school teacher for 20 years, now work for the State Department of Education. I'm one of the 3 people on our Perkins Grant team. And one of the things in my portfolio is the work-based learning programs in Connecticut. So I do have a couple points here, just things to consider within your work. First, Secretary Cordona did mention kind of a broad range of work-based learning activities and opportunities. And then in this breakout session, it was brought up again that we don't have any baseline data. And I think it's really important for, as part of the goals of this commission, to narrow down what constitutes as reportable work-based learning, right? Is it the 1 hour at the career fair your sophomore year? Are you getting credit for work-based learning for that? Or is it something that is on the higher end of the higher intensities? We did put together a guide in our most recent Perkins State Plan. Ben Hainsley was working on a very similar resource for his fellowship, and a lot of the language that's in those 2 things from last I saw Ben's work was quite aligned. We would see that the higher intensity ones where you're leaving school or you're employed, the direct link to employment would be the ones that would more constitute as reportable types of work-based learning. But obviously, we're going to take the direction of whatever this commission is coming. So just something to think about in that space. Also, the more we hear from schools who are participating in either paid or unpaid internships with their students, the more we start scratching our heads about whether or not the labor laws are being followed. And we do have some programs at the state level for an unpaid experiential learning program where you're capped at 120 hours. There's a process that schools go through in order to place students in unpaid positions in for-profit industries. And there's a cap on the 120 hours that kids can do there, and that's within the year. The more we hear things, the more we think that many schools are actually breaking the law by placing students for unpaid positions. And we just want to make sure, as part of the guidance that comes from this group here, is that everyone understands the labor laws, and then we don't have to chase things down on our end to make sure that everyone is following the law, because the guidance is incredibly clear through all of the voices that are coming from here. And a couple other points. I was fortunate enough to attend a conference in Providence sponsored by ACTE, and it was their WBL conference. So if anyone in this group, they hosted one of these conferences every single year. That is a career and technical education national organization. Next year, I believe it's in like Oklahoma, but it was in Providence, and there was so much great networking and so many good resources that were there. So I would really implore anybody who's really invested on this commission to go to these conferences, because there's a lot of learning, a lot of sharing that's happening there. And I'll share a couple things that I took home that I think it's important for everyone here to understand. First of all, I had lunch and breakfast almost every single day with the same group of people from North Dakota. And the first thing that kind of shook me from their titles and their introductions is they were all working in secondary schools, and their titles were work-based learning coordinators. That does not exist in Connecticut. And not only that, they had the same title, but they were all within the same surrounding towns of Bismarck and or within Bismarck. And what they realized was something that I know this commission is going to come out with is standardized practices, standardized forms. So if an employer was working with two different school districts, there were not two completely different avenues for how to complete the process in order to have these students in place. I thought that was great. And actually that was created by in partnership with the person that had the title from the state, and then the people who had the titles from those districts. They were all working together. So everything should be the same. That helps remove those silos that everybody speaks about. The second thing that I thought was incredibly moving was in Colorado, there's a state fund, and I actually heard CBIA has some of this money here too after speaking with Dustin Nord a few weeks ago, that there's a state fund that pays industry to hire 16 and 17-year-old student learners. Now, what was mentioned in this series was that there's not enough money to pay every single person, so they're looking at increasing that amount of money. And maybe I have heard something recently on NPR in Connecticut that something like this has passed as well in Connecticut, but it's for adult learners. So maybe back to David's point, that people can't take time off and to go learn, right? So there's I believe, and we can look into this more, there's now some sort of legislation in Connecticut that's helping to cover that financial gap, so people can get paid for these internships through this state program. So again, these are barriers that everyone knows that exist. Another one I want to mention over here is what I found was the key component of all these successful states or programs that were running across the country was a piece of software. And whether that software is the students logging in and tracking their hours, employers and employer mentors evaluating the students through the software, the education side being able to access that same information, but also for employers to post student work-based learning positions available almost on a digital job board where everybody's going to the same place to view these. And they were broken up regionally. And I know that's one of the main goals of this group here, is to help regionalize some of the solutions and some of the conversations, particularly maybe through industry advisory council boards. But that is most certainly something that I found incredibly powerful, was these tools, whether it was a website designed by Illinois, by the state itself, or software tools that are like add-ons to things that are already being used in the K-12 space. And I think, yeah, that's about some of the major points I had there. I'm here for answer questions if anyone has anything from us from the state level, but this is more about me saying that. So thank you.
Thanks, Sean. I see we had a couple other people with hands raised. I see Sean Coyne from Electric Boat, so maybe Sean would love to hear from an employer.
Yeah, hopefully this works. I've had some tech challenges today. Can you hear me okay?
We can.
Okay. So it seems like there's a lot of conversation around post-secondary. And I guess, one of the things I would mention is just last week, there was actually a gathering through the Tech Talent Accelerator group down at Southern, where they had a conference. I was unable to attend, but we did have one of our people there. And this is exactly what the topic was. So, Tracy, whether it's you or Alicia, if you're looking to see kind of like what sort of learning kind of came out of that, I can point you in the right direction and make sure you're getting whatever came out of that. Unfortunately, I wasn't there, but it seems to be a big topic of conversation. So I wanted to make sure that I just raised my hand and let you know about that. I mean, at Electric Boat, we have a variety of different work-based learning opportunities. I probably can't talk about all of them. I think most of you have probably heard we're pretty active in the manufacturing space everywhere. But I would add, again, kind of to some of the stuff that I've just heard in this group. We do have summer internships, they are paid. We have several hundred engineers every summer that cycle through Electric Boat. But we also have engineers in finance and IT, HR, security, planning. I'm sure there's more that I can't even think of. I think we run through 300 or 400 students a year. So there, even when I was a lawyer in the legal department years ago, I had one or two summer interns, and they were phenomenal contributors, and they went on to some pretty good career opportunities. And I got a lot out of working with those folks too. I mean, I know Todd's on there, so I'm not going to talk about apprenticeships because he would do circles around me on that type of stuff. But obviously, EB does have some apprenticeship programs in the trades, in design. Um, um, I'm not sure what else is out there. I'm sure I'm missing like youth pipeline stuff, but um, I'm a little disappointed there's not more employers on here. It's not on any of you, but it does make me a little bit nervous because we're not your typical employer, and it's less I think about. I don't worry about Electric Boat, and I think we're doing a lot of things to support the things that we can support. But there's like I'm on the RSP for Eastern Connecticut Manufacturing Alliance, and that's a pretty small group and small businesses, and they don't have the resources that we have to be as active in this space. I heard the conversation about the labor laws that are out there. I know those are pretty tricky with manufacturing positions, and we've gone through a lot of hoops over that many years ago to make sure that we weren't running afoul of the under 18 laws that are in the state of Connecticut. But there's a lot of good businesses out there that don't have lawyers at their ready beck and call to help them out navigating through this stuff. They want to do the right thing, but they get scared off sometimes from doing things. So I don't know what we can do to help them out, but I don't know. I'm not sure what else is out there. I just wanted to give a couple comments. Thank you.
Thanks, Sean. And I'll just respond to one thing Sean mentioned about engaging employers. We only had, it looks like you in this group today, but we have a whole stakeholder engagement plan that includes extensive business engagement, putting roundtables together, ensuring that we are talking to employers from different industries, different size employers, so we can really get their input up front and then their reaction to whatever plan we come up with. So if anyone on this call has any suggestions for us about employers we should add to the list, we would welcome that. And we're talking to the RSPs and some of the structures that are already set up, but also doing outreach through some of the networking to make sure that we're getting good coverage of the state.
And I think Jim has been patiently waiting with his hand up. Perhaps he's next. Hi, Jim.
Hi, Jen. Hi, Alicia. I'll be short. I mean, I'm assuming Kathy Awad's really kind of provided ample input from the workforce boards, and I see other colleagues, Jill and others that are there, and also other partners, Erica from DOL and others. So I would just say if the question was around data, one of the things that we do have, and I think if it hasn't been shared with you, and particularly from 2008 through 2017, there was year after year of data between both the workforce boards, DOL worked with us, as well as State Department of Ed. And over that time, it really showed that those young people in structured summer youth employment programming were attending and graduating school at greater levels than comparison groups, as well as their future success in terms of higher education attainment and also earnings. So, unfortunately, some of that data sharing and work in recent years hasn't been as much, but I just think, and I guess one of the points I wanted to make there is that As we sit here today, right, we'll see about maybe about 4,000 young people in structured summer youth employment programs, thanks to the state's Connecticut Youth Employment Program and other funders. But then we're going to see for every one young person, three young people on waiting lists. And I would just offer that, yesterday I was at a meeting where Mimi Haley was talking at the Governor's Workforce Council's Youth Committee that, like Boston, right, has no waiting list for youth employment. And they serve almost 11,000 young people. And so going back to Secretary Cardona's point about, I feel like we have some of the structures and, like some of these employment programming in place here in Connecticut with dozens of organizations and probably more than dozens of organizations and hundreds of employer sites. How we build on that and how we scale that up and really connect it to even more intentionally the educational systems. I just think that that's one thing to take a strong look at. And then again, as you pointed out, in terms of the regional sector partnerships, their interest is significant in terms of continuing to play that role in terms of working with workforce boards and others to really build out these kinds of pathways. So thanks for letting me share.
Terrific. Thank you. I just want to acknowledge there's a couple of notes in the chat, and one is from Adriana and she just shares that she'd like to see data regarding the percentage of students who participate in workforce learning programs that lead to gainful employment, including disabled and non-disabled students. So thank you, Adriana, for that input. And I would say definitely the data piece of this is a big part of the enablement of the work and is something that the commission is absolutely thinking about very, very deeply. And in fact, one of the commission committees is about state level systems, and data is a big, big piece of that conversation. So hopefully that is reflective of the importance that you place on that item as well. Chris, you said you can share what FQHCs in Connecticut have shared with me, and you were giving others a chance to speak. So Chris, we'll come back to you on that item.
Yeah, so, and again, FQHC, Federally Qualified Health Center, we do love our acronyms in these spaces. I'll just share that real broadly. Some of the barriers our health centers have shared are the potential for lost productivity. So in a healthcare setting, that's going to be less encounters, things like that. In a manufacturing setting, I would imagine that be production of whatever they're manufacturing. And then in healthcare, concern for privacy, if this was going to be a clinical encounter. What we've also heard is that a positive is when you have something like, we'll use a medical assistant as an externship that can function as a multi-month job interview. So if someone's there doing their required externship, we can really see if they're a cultural fit. They can learn if this is what they want to do because they may not want to know. They've said that it's helpful to have like the kind of structured curriculum if they can get assistance with that. They may be willing to host and teach learners, but they might not have the bandwidth to develop a whole program for welcoming people. So any collaboration on that, and I feel like that would probably be true of many small and medium-sized employers. And then this is something that I hear a lot, and I don't know if this is where the state could help, is concern for like insurance and liability. And to Sean's point about not everyone has lawyers, like, is it possible that I've templated, these are the agreements you should develop, or here's some type of insurance program that you can be a part of if you agree to host learners. I don't know how that would work, but those are just some things that might be tangible ways that this could be supported.
Thanks, Chris. We've actually heard that issue, and it is definitely something on the list to address. And there's a variety of ways we're going to look at and see what makes the most sense.
Sean, you have your hand up.
Yeah. Just a couple of things I thought about after people were speaking here. If you're trying to help industry understand some like how to get involved, I think it's really important to let them know that education has open doors and is waiting for them. And I can also say, coming from the classroom and trying to find placements for students to do work-based learning, teachers do not have the bandwidth and the capacity to leave their classrooms. That's their main function in their job, to go knock on industry partners' doors, but to create those relationships. So I just want to let everyone know that education's doors have a doorbell, and they also are ready to open them to have these conversations. They're eager, they're waiting. Everybody in the space is very thirsty for this at the moment. But teachers do not have, particularly CTE teachers, do not have the bandwidth for that. I can just let you know, my wife's a culinary arts teacher. The amount of hours she spends at grocery stores and Restaurant Depot, she doesn't have the time to now go to restaurants and say, hey, do you have room for 5 kids to work in this place? There's just not that capacity. The other thing also for employers to understand is the type of students and support for students who need additional supports, and how to work with students with special needs. And also the difference of working with a student who is in a CTEC school versus working with a student in a comprehensive high school, more around not even just their technical abilities, because I can tell you that particularly at the electric boat welding competitions, that the students from comprehensive schools are welding just as well as some of our CTEC students. Is the time that they have available for the work-based learning opportunities. The CTEC schools have a built-in 2-week opportunity for students to do this. Comprehensive schools maybe have a block schedule where they can leave at 12:30. So preparing employers for that limited amount of engagement with the learners is important for them to understand that they're not getting an employee from 7 o'clock to 4 o'clock in the afternoon, right? They can get that with the CTEX model, but they cannot get that with the comprehensive high school model. And the last thing I want to share is just another point that I want to mention from that work-based learning conference is the number of 60 hours was mentioned several times from several different states as a benchmark for the minimum amount of hours to constitute as something that was a work-based learning opportunity or completing work-based learning. And in that same Illinois session that I went to, if the student did complete those 60 hours, they got an additional badge on their high school diploma at the state level that says that they completed this work-based learning. Thank you.
Thanks. Any other hands raised on that question? We have a couple more questions we can probe a little. Tracy, how much time do we have?
I think, Alicia, we're closing the meeting from here, if I'm not mistaken. I don't think we're going back into the
okay.
main
So
room.
I
I
guess
think that's correct. Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the things that Chris mentioned was barriers. So it would be great we've heard a few of them, but if there are any additional barriers we should be looking at in our work and thinking about how we address, love to spend a couple minutes talking about that. I see Todd has his hand up.
Yeah, good afternoon. Sean was actually quite affluent in his discussion with regard to block scheduling of comprehensive high schools. That is a very big prohibition from individuals getting into a proper work-based learning regimen. But the one thing that I wish to address today is work-based learning transportation for students, the possibilities of utilizing districts' Perkins funds for that purposes. I think because the school bus companies are wildly expensive. That being said, there's avid discussion.
I'll jump in, Todd. I did. It's funny as you were mentioning my name, I already dropped student transportation into the chat, so I completely see that as a barrier. And most certainly, if I read a Perkins grant where the district was spending a certain percentage of their grant to move students to work-based learning placements, we would celebrate that. So that is most certainly something that is allowable. It's in the 510 object code that's called student transportation. Most people would use those for like field trips or for their career technical student organization, their CTSOs to go to conferences. But most certainly, if I saw a grant that said we're going to spend $6,000 to bus our students to employment opportunities, that would be a case study in how to do it the right way.
Thank you, Sean. You and I need to have a conversation offline, by the way.
Of course.
We actually used some of our monies through the Good Jobs Challenge that we had. That the chambers of commerce were working very closely with the school systems, and that was brought up as a major barrier to getting students into employer sites. And so we've used our Good Jobs Challenge funds to pay for the buses. So trying to come up with creative ways to look at what money do we have, what money do you have, what money do you have, and they have to plan those things out like for the year. Like they have to know ahead of time what they're going to do and where that money's going to go. So if something comes up real short, they don't have, it's like, oh, it's great, we really want to do this, but we don't have any money. How can we support them in overcoming that barrier?
I'm thinking, and first of all, I need to shout out the workforce development boards since Jill just spoke, but to the point of what do you have, what does everyone have, and how can we help each other? With the multiple WDBs on this call, I've been able to have a lot of success, and so again, use what's already there. I'm thinking advice for employers on how to measure ROI, right? Especially, businesses all run tight margins. And they may intuitively know that they want to do it, but they're like, how do I know if this is actually working for me? And so I'm just thinking if employers can be provided with simple ways that they could consider measuring the ROI of a work-based learning program, that might help them say, oh, okay, that's not so bad. Here's how we can do this. Here's how I can sell it to my leadership, things like that.
Oh, God forbid they get their next employee if they go through a work-based learning regimen that actually can do a job.
Erica, I think you're next.
Thanks, Tracy. Yeah, I just kind of wanted to share the same that's kind of previously already been shared. I think we have a huge opportunity in just utilizing our main regional partners like the workforce development boards through the public workforce system that already convenes the American Job Centers that have all the WIOA titles that work with all the different workforce grants the state administers, connecting them with where they already are, many places, and expanding it with education, whether that's with the regional education service centers as like a convening party to help out. Like we have a ton of opportunity to have the business service reps and the abilities of the boards to kind of help the school system so they can focus on curriculum teaching, that type of activity. And our workforce system can help work with the matching and like the infrastructure of creating those placements. So yeah, just putting those two partners together has a lot of opportunity that all of our agencies and systems can support making future workers.
Erica, what do you think are the barriers today that prevents that from happening sort of naturally?
So not to speak for a bunch of the other boards on the call and stuff, but at least for labor, most of the people don't know in public what we do until they file for unemployment insurance, they show up to the American Job Center. So just the ability to know what we do and who we who we can serve and the options that we have before you're actually eligible to participate in services would be great. So we've been actively working with a lot of the regional education service centers, State Department of Ed, and other partners, just to help spread the word more. And definitely under this partnership that Labor and ADS BRS have with a grant to just have earlier awareness and information. For, let's say, like 7th and 8th graders to know about the workforce system and investing in that system as opposed to trying to create new programs or pockets. Like that's our just information awareness is a good starting point, and being able to speak about it in plain language so that it's accessible and known. And then you would have kind of the tools to know where to go to get a job or have more of that embedded in a school where possible too. So
thank you for that. I think there's a key theme that we've heard, that sometimes the products or the solutions or the whatever it is exist. It's just awareness. And I heard there's this phrase, like, you have to, like, message sent isn't always message received, or you need to tell someone something 6 times before they actually hear it. So I think that's definitely a through line in this work.
And it's also not just like awareness, but the maintenance of those relationships over time, because people change and you don't want to rely on, like, we've been sharing it in multiple ways, just that one really good staff person in one spot to be the convener. Like, we need that more. And we're having a lot of good progress in a bunch of different grants where we have cross agency and workforce system collaboration happening.
Fantastic.
Anyone else have any discussion of, we kind of started with barriers, but talking about other things. If not, we will maybe wrap up with.
Alicia, sorry, we got a couple more hands.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I think we're. I don't know who was first, but Todd and Tracy.
Todd can go first. Absolutely. Go ahead, Todd.
Thanks, Tracy. I want to address something that Sean said earlier with regard to a lot of mythical things about especially 16 and 17-year-olds in the workplace. Those have been either rumors, speculation, myth, what have you. We're available to have conversation. Don't be afraid of us. We're in the Department of Labor to take care of this for businesses. So we know exactly how to mitigate these, because we're the ones that actually oversee this. And also, with regard to liability, especially for work-based learning, pay them. Paid internships, paid apprenticeships, paid pre-apprenticeship comes with workers' compensation. There's your liability. You pay them, you mitigate that liability right there. So just something to chew on.
Thanks, Todd.
I agree
Tracy?
with Todd. Yeah. Really. So I saw Sean's comment in the chat and about industry playing a role in helping in transportation. I had the privilege being on the Bristol Tech Advisory Committee some years ago. And yes, when industry comes together, they had a busing issue in Bristol for a program, and the industry partners said, well, we can each give $100 or $200 to pay for this bus for that. But it means industry coming together and having those conversations. We do have quite a few, opportunities in the state for industry to come together. The regional sector partnerships being one of them, where industry and education are together, working on priorities. And, it's an opportunity to be able to say, hey, transportation's our issue, and how do we come up with a resolution together?
Absolutely. Thank you, Tracy. All right. Please come off mute if you have your hand up and we just aren't seeing you, because we don't want to miss anything.
Yeah, hello. This is Mark Soicher. I got dumped off the website earlier, so I missed the very beginning of the conversation here, so I'm not sure what comments were made there. And I see my images, I don't know if it's coming up or not on the screen there.
Yeah. Welcome back, Mark. It's an opportunity to share any thoughts you might have about the wonderful things that are happening in the state regarding work-based learning, the challenges, the barriers, the opportunities. So that's really.
Yeah, no, I got all of that. I just missed the initial conversation in this breakout room. Anyway, okay. I worked with a group of colleagues at Department of Correction and Central Connecticut State University to develop a toolkit for employers for second chance hiring opportunities. And I'm drawing parallels here with, someone commented, God forbid, they should get a full-time employee out of this process. which was one of the goals of the Second Chance Hiring Initiative. They're not just bringing people in to learn on the job or get a job experience, but actually to find workers who will be loyal, dedicated, productive, and very effective for the company. One of the issues that we addressed in the toolkit for second chance hiring was developing a business case statement for this. You've referenced, what are the obstacles to all of this? Things like liability, disruption of production, people not being familiar with working with youth in a work setting like this, whether it's professional services or manufacturing or healthcare, things like that. And so sometimes it's a cultural issue among the workforce. Sometimes it's a management concern. I get the sense that we're fumbling a bit as far as presuming what employer obstacles may exist and trying to articulate solutions to those presumed barriers. And in some cases, it's a matter of sitting down with some employers and saying, why are you reluctant to go forward with something like this? Let's talk about what misperceptions you may have, what real obstacles you may have. And I'm retired now, but in my active career, I was HR counsel at CBIA, the Connecticut Business and Industry Association. And a frequent question was, can I hire this 16, 17-year-old to do certain types of work? And I would always suggest they reach out to the labor department because they are the folks who are going to enforce those laws if they cross lines inappropriately. But they are also very much interested in educating employers about what opportunities there are. And in many cases, structuring those work experiences for a youth worker can be successfully navigated. And with the input of the Labor Department, which, who are intimately familiar with those restrictions or opportunities, can really overcome those barriers. But maybe putting together a model business case statement that speaks to the benefits of some of these initiatives can then be put in front of employers and say, do any of these resonate with you? Will any of these address some of the reservations that you may have? It may be some things culturally. The workers at a company will feel a whole lot better about their job when they're working with a youth who is learning from them and give them a sense of empowerment in doing. They'll probably be better employees themselves and maybe turn them into mentors or managers by virtue of the experience they have, and really fine tune their onboarding process for people beyond just work-based learning experiences to work-based onboarding experiences and bringing people in for actual jobs. So trying to bridge the gap with what I've done and some of the parallels and where I see some gaps here. But,
so well said, Mark, and a great way, I think, to sort of wrap the conversation. We realize there's so much to say in the space. So there's two things. One, I just popped in the chat Alicia and my emails. So a lot of people process during these conversations. So if you have thoughts that you'd like to share, and definitely send them to us. Mark, if you could actually, we'll figure out how to get in touch with you, but would love to see the toolkit that you talked about. Anything that you have that you think could benefit this work, please do send it along. I'm also going to pop up on the screen a QR code that is linked to a survey. If you have a phone with you and can take sort of grab that QR code and provide information. It's a very short survey. That would be great. But again, if not, if the technology doesn't work, again, Alicia and my contact information is in the chat. So let me just go ahead and do that and make sure that you can see it. Whoops. Oh. Can you see that QR code?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. But again, if the technology doesn't work, just take a quick look at the chat and Alicia and my emails are in it. And as you're doing that, I think we've come to time. Alicia, anything else you'd add before we say goodbye to these folks for the day?
Nope, that's it. This work is ongoing. We're going to be working on the plan through the fall. So please, now, later, reach out to us. If you can't remember how to get in touch with us, OWS can connect us with us. And we just really appreciate your time and your thoughts today.